Hi all, thank you for joining us this evening for our Imposter Syndrome at Work event. If this is your first time joining us, nice to meet you. My name is Michael. I'm one of the members of the YBA team. If you've attended our previous events, great to see you again. So for our new members, let me give you a quick overview about YBA and our values. YBA is a network run by young BAs for young BAs. We offer access to a network of peers and other related networks. We offer a safe place in which young BAs can develop professional confidence through educational and social events, public speaking forums and competitions. We offer an opportunity for young BAs to become role models and mentors at early stages in their BA career. We provide a platform in which young BAs can share knowledge, and we help young BAs to achieve their personal and professional goals. Dan Kiernan is our speaker for this evening. I actually know Dan on a personal level as he was one of my careers coaches back at university. I still remember on the open days or the taster days where you go and visit the university campus and meet a few of the students. They all spoke highly of Dan as the careers coach you want to book sessions with. Known as the coach with the connections who would try his best to help you reach your goals. I actually felt like an imposter the first time I met with Dan. I remember going into his office without a clue about the job market, internships. Dan even helped me write my very first CV. Long story short, Dan's current role is a careers coach where he wants to help students achieve their personal and professional goals, links directly with our values at YBA and for our members. Just a few more things to mention before I hand over to Dan. Please note this event is being recorded. To request a copy of this, I will post a link into the chat at the end of the event. This link will also include other questions relating to this session. It would be great if you could all fill this in as we highly value all feedback. Okay, that's all from me for now. Hope you all enjoy the event. Whenever you're ready, over to you, Dan.
Wonderful. Thank you, Michael. Good evening, everyone. Can I encourage you to put your cameras on, please, if you can at all? It might not be possible, but it's lovely to have this moment of connection. Give me a smile and a wave. Let me know you're out there. You can hear me. Thank you very much. So how are you all feeling? How's your week been so far? This is 1 out of 10. This is 10 out of 10. Let me know how you're doing. How's your week been? We can be honest with each other here. You don't have to say it's 10 out of 10. Everyone's having a kind of average week. All right, that's not bad. Thank you for joining us. I know you must all be busy. You're probably grappling with remote work, wondering about going back to the office and what that's going to feel like. So it's great that you've made time to do a little bit of personal development and join this session on addressing imposter syndrome. I applaud you for making the time to do that. We're going to talk about ways to diminish feelings of imposter syndrome, some strategies for tackling it, and we'll practice some peer-to-peer coaching as well. So by the end of the session, you're going to feel more confident in the workplace, virtual or otherwise, and you'll have some next steps to take to keep on improving in this area. How does that sound? Does that sound okay to everyone? Is that what you're expecting? Okay, good. So I'll just talk you through the agenda and what to expect. And this is going to be a workshop, not a presentation. So in a moment, I'm going to take us through some icebreakers just to get us in the mood. Then I'll give you a couple of questions to think through. Then I'm going to perhaps be putting you in some breakout rooms as pairs or trios, getting you to work with each other. So that's another reason why it's really great if you can have your cameras on. I'm also going to ask you to give some feedback via Mentimeter. Anyone used it before? Probably lots of you have seen it before. So you might need another browser window open or a device to log on to Mentimeter. I know sometimes this kind of discussion work can feel a little bit embarrassing and you might feel a bit anxious about it. But as Michael said, this is a safe space here. So there's nothing to worry about. This is just a place to practice things and try things out. So, don't feel anxious about it at all. And feel free to ask me questions. I'll give you some space at the end for questions, share your own thoughts, challenge me if you think I've got something wrong. Does that all sound okay? Okay, wonderful. Thank you. So before I start a session like this, I always ask a few questions just to get you thinking, not about the topic, but about how you're going to engage with the learning. So you just answer these questions in your head. You don't have to answer them out loud. But how much risk are you willing to take? So you might give yourself a score out of 10 or answer that with a sentence. How much risk are you willing to take in this session? How committed are you to making this session successful? And how much do you care about the experience of others here today? We're all working together to make this event a success. So how much do you care about that and the experience of others? And how committed are you to making real change after the session? It's one thing to join in and listen to a presentation or participate in a workshop, but the hard bit is actually making some change afterwards. So just have a little think about those things. And now we're going to do some icebreakers to get us in the right mood. So, okay, well done, everyone. Thank you for joining in. That's really helpful. I'm going to put you all into breakout rooms now. So you might be in a pair or a trio. All I want you to do is introduce yourself to each other if you haven't met before. If you have met before, just say hi. And then just talk a little bit about your thoughts on imposter syndrome and what you want to get out of the session. I'm just going to give you 3 minutes for that. Welcome back, everybody. How was that?
It was good.
Oh, it was really good. It was good to talk to some of the other participants.
Yeah, sometimes it's nice to talk to strangers and share your thoughts. So I've got a couple of questions. The first one you can just answer in your head. When did you last feel imposter syndrome? So just get that in your mind. Now we're going to do a hands up. So everyone start with their hands up. Keep your hand up if you felt imposter syndrome in the last 3 months. Put your hand down if it's longer than that. Last 1 month. Keep your hand up if you felt in the last 1 month. Oh, here we go. Last 1 week. Okay, few hands coming down. Well done, guys. Today. People feeling it right now? Okay. Hands down, hands down. Well done, guys. The next question, I'm going to share a Mentimeter with you. Hopefully you can see that and you can see the code for joining. 80776927. Just answer with a word. This will be anonymous, so you can use whatever word you like. Try not to swear. But when do you feel imposter syndrome most often? So is it in team meetings, perhaps? Maybe it's when you're on the phone to clients. Maybe it's when you're dealing with your peers. Maybe it's when you're talking to a boss. Just answer with a word. Okay, here it comes. So team meetings, very common one. Answering question in a group, yeah, I get that. Recommending, presenting, classic one, yeah. Yeah, Ali is applying in the chat. She says team meetings as well. Speaking often comes up. Project meetings with peers. Benchmarking, that's quite a specific one. That's a good one. Thank you, guys. Client emails. Yeah. So slightly different thing, slightly different format of communication, email. Yeah, presenting and public speaking always comes up. Very good. Interviews, yeah, that's a classic one. Okay, thank you. Let's freeze that there. Just take a moment to note all of those. Maybe it's prompted some thought. I would always encourage you to think as well, whenever you respond to a question like this, take it to another level, think more specifically. So what is it about team meetings that makes you feel imposter syndrome? Is it perhaps the thought that you might be asked to answer a question that you're not prepared for? Or is it the idea that you might be compared to your colleagues? So any of these things, take it to another level. Think about, what is it specifically about public speaking that scares me? What is it specifically about speaking with seniors? Okay, this is a slightly different question, but you might answer with the same words. That's fine. When do you feel it most acutely? When do you feel it the most? So most often might be team meetings because you have them twice a week, but when do you feel it the most? When is it most severe? So you feel it the most talking to a peer. Yeah. There's a weird kind of peer pressure sometimes in work where you feel like you're competing. Unguided tasks. Yeah, that can be really scary. When you're given a task and you're not quite sure what's expected. Presenting is coming up again quite strongly, of course. And interviews, naturally. Starting a new role, yeah, a big situation. Definitely one where people feel imposter syndrome. Talking to a supervisor or a senior, these are coming through again. Being compared, yeah, being compared's horrible, isn't it? I don't know why that's a thing in the workplace. Facilitating workshops, yeah, that wasn't me, but sometimes I do feel like that. Okay, let's freeze that one there. Take a moment to absorb those. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. How's that? Was there anything there that was unexpected for people, or is that what you were expecting to see? Give me a sign. Pretty much what you were expecting to see. I do that survey with people much more senior in their careers, in all kinds of different career paths, and get similar responses. So they do feel imposter syndrome within 1 month, 1 week. Now, it seems to be something they feel all the time. And they feel it around the same kind of content: public speaking, team meetings, being compared to others, being given work they're not sure about, certainly the classic ones of interviewing and starting a new role. So it's something that seems to be part of working life. We'll come back to that. I don't know how helpful that thought is, but it is something that we seem to have with us throughout our working life. Okay, I'm going to put you back into pairs now. I'm going to give you 5 minutes this time. I want you to share with each other. So this isn't a test or a competition. You're not being compared. Just share with each other what situation for you is when you feel imposter syndrome most acutely. And then take it to the next level. What do you actually feel? What do you actually think? What are you specifically concerned about? What are you worried is going to happen? So I just want you, this is like a negative visualization. It goes against all the positive stuff we normally talk about. What are you specifically concerned about? What are you actually worried will happen when you feel imposter syndrome that acutely? So I'm going to put you back into those breakout rooms. How was that, guys? Useful? Productive? So I'm going to pick on some people just for a bit of feedback about what was talked about in your room. Michael, since I know you best, I'll come to you first. What was talked about in your room?
So we spoke about, it was more like, imagine if you were in a meeting and with other members more senior than you. You always think that they're asking great questions, answering great questions, and you don't feel like you can add value to it, and you're wondering why. But then I think the way to overcome this is you have to think they're more senior than you because they've started the role before you. So maybe look back 2 years, they're in the same situation as you and they probably didn't know either. So it's just taking that view on it, possibly.
Good. Yeah, I really like that. And I like that you're thinking about solutions already. Bryony, were you in a different room to Michael? Was something else discussed in your room?
No, I was actually in the same room.
Oh, no. Who wasn't in? Niall, I'm going to try you.
Thanks. So Lauren and I were in the same room and we talked about our different experiences. So for me, like during interviews, I can find it a bit stressful. If there's usually like one question, if there's a question that stumps me, then that can be a bit of a domino effect. Lauren was talking about if she's speaking with like a senior peer, and she's sort of like reviewing what has been said during the presentation just to make sure everything's right, and sort of feeling the pressure of making sure that everything that she said makes sense. And sometimes the best thing to do is just ask, like, does that make sense? Or just say, I don't know, I'm not too sure what you mean. And just sort of open yourself up for an explanation.
Yeah, I really like that. You're asking for feedback on your performance, asking how you can be better. Most managers really appreciate that. And what I would also say, just it's fucking input on interviews, often when you start getting hard questions, it's because you're doing well, because the interviewer is interested in you. They want to put you under a bit of pressure to see how you respond. If you get a really, really easy ride and it's all finished in 20 minutes, they were just being polite, but they wanted you out the door as quick as possible. So if you start getting difficult questions, don't panic. It's actually a good sign. Edward, Ed, were you in a different room? What was talked about in your room?
Yeah, hi there. So I was with Tony, and well, we had an interesting chat because I think that what we were saying is that although the situations that we might feel kind of imposter syndrome are different, the underlying reason, or like the underlying reasons that you might feel it are pretty similar. So it's kind of like I might feel it when I'm talking directly with a client, and I know that the client are almost paying for my time, but they're experts in what they do. So I almost feel like, being quite new to a role, how do I really add that value? And Tony's more kind of in a mentoring position. I'm wondering whether she actually lives up to that expectation. While they're two very different things, mostly it's that feeling of kind of, do I deserve to be here? And second questioning yourself. So I think that one of the things that I've always, I remember my mum saying, is that when you talk publicly, you always think that people are trying to pick holes in what you're doing, but ultimately they're not. I don't sit here and try and pick holes in what you're saying. So it's not what people do, but we always feel like people are doing that to us.
Yeah, I like that reflection. We often focus on the negative. It's actually something we're primed for by evolution, because looking out for danger is what keeps us alive. And so we're primed to look for the negative things. But actually, just as you say, Ed, most people want you to do well, whether it's public speaking, facilitating a meeting, or just a one-to-one conversation with a client. They really want you to do well. They want it to be a positive interaction for both of you. They're not looking to catch you out or pick holes in what you're saying. So that's a good reflection. Thank you. I've got a couple more questions for you to answer in your heads. So you might want to make a written note, but you don't have to if you don't want to. So when you're feeling imposter syndrome, how likely is it that what you were worried about will happen? How likely is it that it will actually happen? And what is the worst thing that can happen? So maybe not the thing you're worried about, but what's the very, very worst thing that can happen? And how likely is it that that would happen? If something bad happened, what would be the consequences? Like, really, what would actually be the consequences? And then changing tack slightly, what are the consequences of sort of giving in to imposter syndrome? So I'm thinking here about the occasions when you don't speak up, or don't put your hand up for the project, or don't go for the job. Are you giving up on opportunities for growth and development because you're worried about consequences that are not very likely to actually come to pass? So you can see what I'm trying to do here. Firstly, I'm trying to show you that everyone feels imposter syndrome some of the time, which was the first exercise, and the benefit of talking with each other. And secondly, I'm trying to show you that the benefits of overcoming imposter syndrome far outweigh the costs of being cautious because of it. Does that make sense to everyone, what I've been trying to do with the first two phases of this that we've been through? So everyone feels it. It's a natural part of being at work. And often what we're worried about, just as Ed was saying, isn't really true. Or even if what we're worried about happens, the consequences probably wouldn't be that serious. Probably. But the consequences of holding ourselves back and being overly cautious can hold us back in our careers. Now, having said all that, it doesn't change the fact that it's a very real feeling. So let's address that. Let's tackle some cases together. So in a moment, I'm going to put you into pairs this time. I think we've got enough people here to do pairs without going into trios. Split yourself into person A and person B. This is what you're going to do. And I will post this to you in the chat as well, but you might want to make a note of it now. Person A is going to think of a situation when they feel imposter syndrome. It might be a situation that's coming up in the future, which would be really useful. It might be a situation they've had in the past, which will be very realistic. But if you can't think of anything, just come up with a hypothetical one. But come up with a situation when you feel imposter syndrome. Person B's role is going to be to coach them. So I'm going to give you 5 questions to ask person A. Your job, this is really important, you must stay quiet and don't add your own thoughts or input until the 5th question. Okay? So these are the questions you're going to ask person A. Question 1, what's the situation? Question 2, what are you concerned about? Question 3, what's the real challenge here for you? So what's the real challenge here for you? Question 4, what are your options to address it? And question 5, let's agree on a way forward. And now person B might add their thoughts, they might share some new options or help person A evaluate the options they generated. So that's what we're going to do, some peer coaching, getting specific. So we're thinking about a specific situation. Welcome back, everyone. Catch your breath. How was that? Useful? Not useful?
Useful.
Yeah.
It was in a good flow.
Learned really quickly.
Yeah, I'm making you work quite hard. I'm making you think about imposter syndrome and suddenly find that you're playing the role of a coach. But I believe coaching is a really important skill. If it's something you can learn and use in the workplace, I think it's really valuable. Okay, so you've had a breather. I'm going to put you back in those rooms, swap roles, and coach the other partner on a different. Back, everyone. Welcome back. Welcome back. How was that? A scale of 1 to 10. How productive was that?
Very good.
Really good.
Oh,
No.
good.
And very quickly again.
Yeah, sorry. You can always do with more time for these things, I think. Good set of questions to just take away and use in other situations. Well, I'm glad that was useful and productive. Okay, we're coming to the end of our time. So just finally, I'm going to give you a little bit of input before I hand back to Michael. So you can probably see how I've been trying to shape this session. It is normal to feel imposter syndrome, and I'll share with you a couple of strategies I think work. They may have come up in your own coaching sessions. It's normal because it shows you're growing. It shows you're outside your comfort zone, you're stretching yourself, you're learning something new. So it's natural that you would feel it quite a lot at this stage in your career. But if further on in your career you're not feeling it, it may be that you're not stretching yourself, you're not growing. That's often the pathway to becoming disengaged from work. and you've probably all come across older workers who are a bit disengaged and frustrating to work with. So ask yourself the question, what if you never felt imposter syndrome at work? What kind of career path would you be on if that was the case? There's actually 4 steps to competence that I think align with the feeling of imposter syndrome. So you can think of this as when you're learning to drive. The first step is you're unconsciously incompetent. So you actually have no idea that you're useless. And so when you're like 10 years old and you see people driving, you just think that's something you can do. The second step is you are consciously incompetent. So the first time you get in a car, you realize you have no idea what you're doing and it's terrifying. You're consciously incompetent. The next step is you are consciously competent. So that's when you can drive the car, but you always have to have this kind of running commentary in your head. I need to change gear, I need to signal, I need to look at the mirror. And the final step is you are unconsciously competent. So that's when you're just happy driving and you can hold a conversation and do other things while you're driving. So if you are in stage 2 or 3, so you're consciously incompetent or perhaps consciously competent, those are the kind of stages when you might be feeling imposter syndrome. So I think it's just a signal that you're actually stretching yourself and learning something new. And in that respect, it's probably a positive. Doesn't mean it's not a real feeling, but you can see it as a positive. And it's one reason why people feel it throughout their careers. Okay, some strategies to overcome imposter syndrome. Some of these probably came up in your conversations. I think one is preparation. So look ahead of the day, look ahead for the week, look ahead for the month. You know when you're going to feel imposter syndrome, and you can prepare for that. It might be by preparing some notes. It might be by practicing something. It might be by talking it through with a friend, but you can easily prepare for the moments where you think you're going to feel imposter syndrome so that you're not holding yourself back. You're not putting your hand up for that project. You want to avoid those situations. You want to be the person that's putting their hand up. The second strategy is training. So now you're looking over a longer period, 6 to 12 months, maybe longer, and you're seeing perhaps, I can see in the future, I've got to do a lot of public speaking. Therefore, I'm going to get some training on that. Maybe I'll do a LinkedIn learning course. Maybe I can get my employer to pay for it. Maybe I can just find someone to coach me on it. But looking ahead for a longer period, you can get training to address gaps that you feel that you've got. The third strategy is a bit more in the moment. Just act as if. So what if I act as if I was confident at team meetings? What if I act as if I was a brilliant public speaker? It's just a mental trick you can play on yourself. So if you're caught out, you haven't had time to prepare, you haven't got the training, just say to yourself, what if I act as if I'm confident in this situation? The fourth strategy is talking. So coaching, like we did today, mentoring, talking to your peers or colleagues, maybe even talking to bosses or seniors, letting them know that you're feeling imposter syndrome, or like someone suggested earlier, asking for some feedback on your performance, asking if you've understood something. I believe talking it through can be really powerful. And the fifth strategy is confidence building measures. So where you know there's something that you are not confident about, that you'll feel imposter syndrome, just take small steps and build on them. So it might be public speaking to just a small group of 5 or 6 people in a low stakes situation, and then you build it up from there. So confidence building measures. Okay, we've got just about 4 minutes left. So maybe time for 1 or 2 questions if there are any. Any questions, thoughts, challenges for me? Have I got it all wrong? You can let me know if you think I have.
Yeah, I've got a question for you, Dan.
Sure.
So I quite like the unconscious competence and that kind of model. How is your best kind of tactic to identify where you might be on that scale? Whether you're, as I think the difference between being unconsciously incompetent or being consciously competent is quite a hard one, because I think sometimes imposter syndrome is felt when you don't know if you're good or not at something. So what might be a way of identifying where you sit on that scale?
Okay, it's a really great question. If you think you're brilliant, or if you think the job is easy, you're probably unconsciously incompetent, unless you've been doing it for years. Another great way, there's a bit less facetious, is talking to your peers and talking to your boss, asking for that honest, authentic feedback. If you can get into a situation in a workplace where the barriers come down a little bit and you're authentic with each other about what the standards are, and whether you're meeting those standards, then you'll know exactly where you stand. So that would be my suggestion, talking to others. Feedback should normally go in the format: this is the standard, this is where you are, this is how we're going to address the gap. And if you can start having those kind of conversations with your manager or your peers, then you're in a really good place in the workplace for growth and development. Does that answer the question, Edward?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, you've got your hand up. Maybe time for one more question.
Yes, so the activity you did with us at the beginning was very helpful, actually. Was it called negative visualization? Because while we did that, later on when we were having conversations, like when I was speaking to Bryony was like, it actually resolved my imposter syndrome thoughts.
Yeah, I call it a negative visualization. It goes a little bit against the trends. You know, people always like to be very positive, but I actually think overall it's a positive thing to do, as you were just describing. If you think about what's actually, you know, the thing I'm worried about here, what's the worst thing that can happen? Often it's not as bad as we think. So it's just a case of facing up to your fears. So yeah, a negative visualization. It actually comes from the ancient Greek Stoic philosophers. So it's not my idea. It's been around for a very long time.
Thank you.
Okay, we're right up against our deadline here, so I'm going to hand back to Michael to bring us to a close. But thank you very much for joining in, guys.
Ali, I got a question. So Ali, are you happy to accept one last question?
Yes, of course. Yeah, if you guys are happy to stay. Ali,
thank you so much. Thank you so much. Just one quick question. How do you stop thinking that people are lying to you? Or not lying, but just being nice to you by telling you that you're doing well, when in reality, you're not doing well. I mean, you think you're not doing well, and your manager is giving you great feedbacks.
I think you have to take people on face value in those situations. So if your manager's giving you good feedback, if your peers are giving you good feedback, then you're probably doing well. And you know, there's no need to keep worrying that you're not meeting their standard. You know, that really comes down to the line manager, and I've line managed a lot of people, and you know, the manager has to give you honest feedback, honest appraisals on your performance. So if they're saying you're good, you just have to take it at face value.
Okay, sounds good. I'll try. All right.
Okay, I think we've come to a close. Thank you very much for engaging, guys. Thanks for participating in all of the exercises and sharing your thoughts, and I'll hand back to Michael.
Well done, Dan. That was absolutely brilliant. My main take from that is imposter syndrome is not always bad, which is interesting because it's I kind of like good nerves, I guess, along the lines of that. Okay, before we bring it all to a close, though, thank you all for joining us this evening. I want to give a massive thank you to Dan for running this excellent event. I'm sure all our attendees will be leaving this session with a greater understanding of imposter syndrome and tips on how to overcome this feeling. As I mentioned earlier, the link has now been posted into the chat. If you've enjoyed this session, be sure to keep an eye on our LinkedIn and Instagram account for upcoming events. Once again, thank you for joining us this evening. Stay safe, and I hope to see you all again.